So yeah, how do we deliver large-scale refurbishment projects with minimising disruption? Well, as Shaun said, I've spent the best part of 25 years for my sins delivering or overseeing the delivery of refurbishment of social housing, including retrofit. So what is the key to success? Well, I think really it was mentioned in the last presentation, it's to work collaboratively. Work collaboratively with clients, consultants, residents, our supply chain, funders, and any other stakeholders to discuss competing factors to ensure that the right balance is gained between cost, impact, and the disruption that will cause to the residents. Talk to the residents, find out about them. Talk about their concerns, their aspirations, the homes that they live in. And then take care not to rush to site. We often make that mistake, rush to site too early before we've actually bottomed out all the problems that need to be overcome. That's for the clients and the residents' benefit. Use trusted delivery teams and supply chains and make sure we're building quality in every step of the way. And then, of course, measure performance and results at the end. So collaboration really is key. That's where we started. Involve all the stakeholders because as a constructor, it may surprise you, but we really don't know all the answers. Often historic issues remain on sites unaddressed. Things like constant leaks, condensation, drainage problems. Ask the maintenance teams, talk to the residents and also their term contractors. They really know what's going on the estates. We can't come in and resolve all their problems in one go without knowing all the history. Considering all the competing factors, and there's lots of them to consider, as we know, some have been touched on already. There's costs, there's technical planning, aesthetic conditions, funding options, and not to mention the resident expectations and the disruption that the works are going to cause. As a project team, interrogate the works. Will the measures provide the maximum impact to the quality of the homes that the residents are living in, the carbon savings and tackling fuel poverty? And as Peter mentioned right at the very beginning, still 1 in 10 families are struggling to pay their fuel bills. Aim at the high impact measures. So we're looking at the green area and the little chart over on the side there. Some will be high cost, as we learnt earlier. Solid wall insulation is very high. Especially if it's internal wall insulation rather than external. But it will be a high cost, but it will be a high impact measure. And then some will be lower cost, but still relatively high impact, such as low energy lighting, especially if you're lighting large communal areas for large parts of the day. And then, of course, avoid anything that falls into the high cost, low impact area, especially when budgets are tight, as they always are these days. So we need to make sure they're designed out at an early stage. And then once the agreed solution's in place, then balance these measures with the disruption. As we mentioned, is it external wall insulation? Is it internal wall insulation? Can the works be carried out in situ, or do we need to decant the residents? If the residents are decanted, then we know there's a higher cost associated with that, and that in turn will inform the selection of the materials. So we always say it's good to talk. Large-scale deliveries require residents to work with us. We ask how we deliver it with minimising disruption. What it is really getting everybody on board. Their participation in the process really is essential to making the project successful. And communication really is what it's all about. Our RLO and community investment teams, are experts in communicating with residents, the residents' associations and the local estate officers to ensure that everybody knows what works are going to be carried out and how we're going to deliver it. To help finalise the programme, we get on site as early as possible and start carrying out what we call resident profiling to learn as much about the residents as we can and their homes, finding out information such as what language do they speak within the households, what religious festivals are they engaged with, the holidays, any medical requirements, for example, anything that can help formulate our programme going forward. As much detail as possible is essential. And these are coupled with our surveys, our validation surveys, making sure we know exactly what's being carried out within the property, and also tying in with occupational therapy surveys. Quite often we end up in properties' homes just to find out that maybe the existing layout of the property is not suitable for the resident that's living there. So it's pointless starting on a retrofit programme if the base property is not suitable for them. This information all helps us to shape our delivery. And then really, it's about bringing that consultation, trying to bring it to life, trying to get people involved in the process. And we do this through a process of consultation roadshows, typically held in a local community centre or village hall. Let people come in, touch, feel, look at the materials that are going to be installed in their properties, the colours, and try and get a sense of the impact that it's going to have on their lives, as well as looking at things such as heat pumps or the windows that are going to be installed, and trying to start to get to grips with some of the equipment that's going to be installed in their homes, such as thermostats and timers, etc. In fact, just next week we've got one for Enfield. We're about to start a large retrofit scheme for Enfield with external wall insulation, ground source heat pumps, windows, a whole variety of installations, and that's being held locally. And again, it will start to give residents that chance to come and look at something that's brand new to their lives. It'll be a different way of living after living for 20 years with electrically heated underfloor heating, which works, which doesn't work more times than it does work. So alongside our RLOs is our community teams. They work with the local authorities and housing associations and organisations such as Construction Line to organise job fairs. They're for local companies as well as local individuals to give them the opportunity to take part in the projects which are being held in their local area, and in turn with training programmes it gives them the opportunity to upskill and help tackle the skills shortage which we're all trying to come to grips with. Through the process, we'll also come aware of community projects. We always end up installing new kitchens or decorating community halls, supporting gardening projects or homework clubs. And just one of the most recent ones was we've just signed up off the sponsorship of Harrow Heroes, yet again for the second time. It's an event which celebrates volunteers within the borough, and we're really proud to support that event. But these initiatives, not only do they help the residents, really what we're trying to do is to integrate us into their community, because the more we integrate, the more we communicate, the more we participate in what's going on, that will aid our delivery. At the end of the day, it's all about getting through people's front doors to carry out the works. So ongoing communication is then delivered throughout the works by a whole array of means: email, text, website, Facebook, and even good old-fashioned newsletters still go through the letterboxes. At completion of the works, the RLOs will deliver energy advice training. Again, I think that picks up on one of Peter's strands that he touched on again at the beginning. Providing energy advice training to the residents to make sure that they are getting the absolute best out of the equipment that's being installed to their homes, and some basic education can make a massive difference to their fuel bills at the end of the project. And finally, once the works are finished, we work with the client to hold a completion event, which not only helps strengthen the community, which we've become part of, but also helps the community look after the project way after we've finished site. And in fact, the photograph there is of an event that we held at Coventry Cross Estate for Poplar Harker, and I think by the smiles, I think we can tell that it was a fairly successful event. As I mentioned earlier, there is always a temptation to rush to site. We think we've got the scheme planned, let's get to site, let's start. But I think really one of the common phrases we use within Durkan is just kind of, let's just take 5. I know it's really difficult not to rush to site, but it's really important that we don't rush to site too early, to take the time to use, take time to use the information that we've learnt from the surveys, from our resident liaison officers to finalise the detail of the programmes. Agree bespoke programmes even for residents such as night workers, and incorporate these into the works, especially if decanting is not possible. Ensure that any planning and technical restrictions have been overcome, and we've reviewed these most effective measures and to make sure they've been balanced with expectations and disruption. Make sure the funding process is in place. There's quite often upfront surveys that need to be carried out. Has that all been bottomed out to enable the funding to be drawn down at completion? And then once the best value scheme has been agreed through collaboration, allow the delivery team to go to site. And really what we're talking about there, the importance of this is because once that prelim clock starts to tick on site, once we turn up and the wagons turn up on site and the site setup is there and our managers are starting to plan the works, really there's no going back to planning. We can't start looking at redelivery, not without incurring additional costs. So again, budgets are always tight. Let's not waste it on delaying the programme and incurring more unnecessary costs. Trust is the next one. Something still very difficult to achieve within the construction industry, but really it is really all about trust. We need trusted supply chain partners, trusted delivery teams. Large-scale retrofit projects in occupation are really not a time to try out new teams. It really need to be trusted, our own delivery teams and trusted supply chain partners. We have to ensure that supply chain partners can deliver to our programme on quality whilst respecting the fact that the homes are in occupation or the estates are still in occupation whilst the works are being carried out. Otherwise, all that planning and the hard work that we've put in at the front end would be largely wasted, because poor delivery will cause access problems, delays to the works and general dissatisfaction. So how do we achieve this? Well, it may seem fairly low tech, but again, coming back to communication, we hold daily whiteboard briefings. It's just one of the ways that we communicate with the site teams. Our site managers meet every morning with the site supervisors to make sure that we know where everybody is working, and they're working to our programme, not the one that may suit them, but the programme that we've agreed with the residents. Focusing on milestones and the projects is important, and communicating these to the residents, as essentially they will be living on a building site for several months often. So they really need to know when the light is starting to shine at the end of the tunnel. Hand over sections or elements to the client as we go, so again the stakeholders can see that the end of the project is in sight. One of the main considerations, quality. I think we'd all agree that it's vital that a quality project is delivered after all the hard work that's gone into it. And as we know, this quality begins at the design stage. It's been really interesting to look at some of the other presentations today based on design. And it's important that we work with manufacturers and the design teams to not only come up with good detailing, but detailing that can be achieved whilst we're on site. And who's responsible for that? Well, the trusted delivery teams that we mentioned earlier and our supply chain. They've got to work on programme, but also in line with our quality plan, the quality plan that's put together at the beginning of the project with our quality managers and our contracts managers. This sets out the path to achieve quality, including things such as samples, benchmark units, and the required inspections along the way. The inspections are really quality. The inspections on quality are really important, and the inspection regimes normally revolve around quality hold points. These hold points are activities that can't be progressed until we've achieved sign-off. Sign-off by our own management teams, sign-off by the system supplier, maybe specialist consultants in the case of the ground source heat pump, for example, or warranty providers before the works are covered up. Again, this is all overseen by our quality managers, which produce written and photographic reports. And then once this has all been achieved, at least all parties can sign off the project in the absolute knowledge that quality has been built in and inspected every step of the way, and nothing has been left to chance. So, measuring and performance. We must measure performance and results. So the last presentation touched on the very same thing. My team always frown when I mention KPIs. Everyone hates to hear it. But the bottom line is, how can we improve if we don't know where we're starting from? We must find out how we're delivering. We measure resident and client satisfaction. We try to do that in line with constructing excellence. We feed this into our company KPIs, and we can compare this with our peers. We ask our clients to complete construction line reference requests to maintain our registration in all categories and make sure that our clients are happy with the works that were carried out. We measure the carbon savings. Again, the 80% reduction set against 1990 baselines has been mentioned. We always ensure that this is achieved, because quite often this is the one major refit that the local authority or housing association is going to go through for many, many years. So we need to hit that first time. And again, it's about balancing those measures to make sure that when we run our calculations, we've achieved that. We also make sure we reduce energy bills. Again, we touched on 1 in 10 households still struggling to pay their bills. Not only theoretical calculations, but actually working with residents, looking at their bills before and after the works, making sure that they are seeing a real-life reduction, coupled with the education that our resident liaison officers have offered to them. And if we can save those energy bills, which quite often is in excess of 40%, it's a massive step forward in reducing fuel poverties on the estates in which they work. I think monitoring the recovery of funding, there's so many organisations or departments within local authorities and housing associations The funding is generally recovered directly by the client, so Eco, Green Deal cashback, RHI funding. We just need to make sure that that's starting to flow back through to the client. And then at the end of the project, tying in with our KPIs, it's all about carrying out an end of project review, making sure we're having proper 360-degree reviews with the client, and use this learning to inform the next project. And then just a little snippet on the slide there. It's every project has an energy report. It's really important that we capture what we've achieved on every project, not only to use internally, but to share that with the residents and the clients so they can see what they've achieved with their investment. So the final four. So what is the key to a successful delivery of a retrofit project, minimising disruption? Well, I've tried to capture these points in these last 4 bullet points. I think communicate and work collaboratively with all the stakeholders. Plan and balance the competing factors and to avoid as much disruption as possible. Deliver with high impact measures with quality built in, and then finally measure the performance of the project and the measures installed to ensure the lessons learned are fed back into the next project to ensure that that next project is even better than the one before. Thank you.